Hello and welcome to today's episode, brought to you by Holy Reads, the world's first Christian book summary app. With Holy Reads, you can discover more powerful insights and summaries from 1,000 plus Christian books in under 20 minutes, whether you want to read or listen. I'm your host, Michael, and today we're discussing 1,000 Gifts by Ann Voskamp, a book that invites us on a journey of discovering gratitude in our daily lives. Through her personal story and spiritual reflections, Voskamp challenges us to see life's smallest blessings, even in difficult times, as gifts from God. Voskamp introduces us to the ancient Greek word eucharisteo, which means to give thanks. This concept forms the foundation of her journey as she explores the profound impact of gratitude on our lives. Voskamp believes that thanksgiving is not just a feeling, but a way of life, a daily practice that can transform how we view the world around us. She explains that learning to give thanks, even for the smallest things, can bring us closer to God. In our busy, often overwhelming lives, we tend to overlook small blessings, focusing instead on our problems or what's missing. But Voskamp encourages us to slow down, to notice the little things like sunlight streaming through a window or the warmth of a cup of coffee, and to see them as reminders of God's love. For Voskamp, Thanksgiving becomes an antidote to anxiety and discontent, helping us embrace life with open hearts. Voskamp's journey into gratitude began with a traumatic event in her childhood: the sudden death of her sister. This tragedy left a lasting impact on her family, leading to years of grief, anger, and doubt in God's goodness. Voskamp's father, once a strong believer, struggled to reconcile his faith with such a painful loss, and her family's faith was deeply shaken. This experience resonates with many of us who've faced losses and challenges that make it hard to feel grateful. Voskamp acknowledges that in the midst of pain, gratitude can feel impossible. But she also shares how her journey helped her realize that even in our darkest moments, God's grace is present. This foundation of faith, however tested, allows her to eventually see life through a lens of gratitude, transforming sorrow into a path toward healing. One of Voskamp's most profound insights is the idea that God is present in the smallest, most ordinary moments of life. She shares how starting a gratitude journal, a list of 1,000 small blessings, helped her see life in a new way. This simple practice of writing down everyday blessings allowed her to focus on God's presence in things like the smell of freshly baked bread, the laughter of her children, and the beauty of nature. Voskamp reminds us that God is not only in the grand moments, but also in the seemingly insignificant details. She believes that by acknowledging these moments, we develop a deeper appreciation for the life God has given us. This daily act of gratitude shifts our perspective, helping us to see the world with eyes of wonder and faith. In 1,000 Gifts, Voskamp explores the link between gratitude and joy, arguing that true joy is found when we cultivate a heart of thanksgiving. She explains that joy isn't dependent on external circumstances, but comes from recognizing God's grace in all things. By practicing eucharisteo, we open our hearts to joy that transcends life's challenges. This perspective is both refreshing and challenging, especially when life feels overwhelming. But Voskamp's message is clear. Joy is a choice, a discipline that we can practice daily by focusing on the gifts God has given us. Through her story, she shows us that joy is always within reach, no matter our circumstances, if we're willing to look for it. Voskamp introduces the practice of naming blessings as a way of actively cultivating gratitude. She explains that naming specific blessings helps us recognize God's hand in our lives and gives us a sense of peace and contentment. By putting words to our gratitude, we give weight and significance to God's gifts. This act of naming is reminiscent of Adam's role in the Garden of Eden, where he was given the task of naming the animals. Voskamp suggests that we can do something similar by naming our blessings. In doing so, we're reminded that every good thing comes from God, and we begin to see life itself as a gift. This practice not only deepens our faith, but also fills our lives with a sense of wonder and reverence. Voskamp delves into the idea that thanksgiving is at the heart of the Christian faith. She explains that sin is rooted in ingratitude and that salvation begins with a grateful heart. This perspective challenges us to view thanksgiving not as an optional practice, but as a vital part of our relationship with God. In the Bible, thanksgiving is often linked to salvation and healing. Voskamp shares the story of the 10 lepers healed by Jesus, only one of whom returned to give thanks. She draws a parallel between this story and our own lives, reminding us that gratitude brings wholeness. By choosing to be thankful, even in hardship, we align ourselves with God's will and open ourselves to His healing power. Voskamp emphasizes the importance of time and urges us to live fully in the present moment. She explains that time is a precious, limited resource, and by filling it with gratitude, we make each moment meaningful. Voskamp warns against rushing through life, as hurry often leads to discontent and robs us of joy. For Voskamp, living fully means being present and taking time to notice and appreciate God's blessings. She encourages us to slow down, to breathe, and to be aware of God's presence in the here and now. This practice of intentional living helps us to savor life and see every moment as a gift from God, deepening our faith and bringing us closer to Him. Grace is a central theme in Voskamp's book, and she believes that we experience God's grace most powerfully when we're willing to be vulnerable. She shares how acknowledging our weaknesses and losses allows us to open our hearts to God's love. Voskamp encourages us to let go of our need for control and to trust that God's grace is sufficient, even in difficult times. This surrender to grace is both humbling and freeing. Voskamp explains that by accepting our limitations and relying on God, we experience a profound sense of peace. Grace becomes a constant source of strength, helping us navigate life's challenges with faith and resilience. Voskamp emphasizes that gratitude is closely tied to humility. By recognizing that every blessing comes from God, we're reminded of our dependence on Him. She explains that humility allows us to find our true identity, not in what we achieve or possess, but in our relationship with God. This humble perspective frees us from the pressure to control everything and opens our hearts to God's guidance. Voskamp reminds us that we are God's children, created to live in communion with Him. Through gratitude and humility, we discover our worth and purpose in God, allowing us to live a life of meaning and fulfillment. 1,000 Gifts is ultimately a call to live a life of radical gratitude, where thanksgiving is not just an occasional practice, but a way of life. Voskamp challenges us to let gratitude shape our thoughts, words, and actions, creating a life that reflects God's love. By embracing gratitude, we become conduits of His grace, blessing others with the love we receive. Voskamp's message is simple yet profound. Every moment, every breath, every gift is an opportunity to give thanks. By choosing gratitude, we align ourselves with God's will and experience the fullness of His love. This radical approach to thanksgiving transforms our relationship with God, allowing us to live fully and joyfully. Thank you for joining us in exploring 1,000 Gifts by Ann Voskamp. This book reminds us that gratitude is more than a feeling. It's a way of life that brings us closer to God and fills our lives with joy. Voskamp's journey of discovering God's gifts in everyday moments invites us to do the same, transforming our hearts through thanksgiving. This podcast was brought to you by Holy Reads, the world's first Christian book summary app. If you found this episode inspiring, download Holy Reads to discover more powerful insights and summaries from 1,000 plus Christian books. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more reflections and book summaries to guide your faith journey. Until next time, may you see each day as a gift filled with blessings and opportunities to give thanks.